Friends, I want you to subscribe to my channel. It's important to me. The baby shower blow up. John and Emily lived in a cozy suburb just outside Los Angeles. With successful careers and a newborn baby girl named Sophie, they seemed like the perfect couple. Their two-story house was the envy of the neighborhood, complete with a white picket fence and a manicured lawn. But behind the pristine exterior, tension simmered. Emily was fiery and headstrong. She hated when things didn't go her way. John, on the other hand, was easygoing but found himself increasingly at odds with his wife's temper. Their disagreements were frequent but usually ended in reconciliation, until Sophie was born. "Can you please hold her for a moment?" Emily asked one morning, her tone sharper than usual. "Sure," John replied, reaching out to take the baby. "Support her head," she snapped. "I got her," John said, a hint of irritation creeping into his voice. Emily sighed dramatically. "You never do anything right." John bit his tongue, opting to let the comment slide. But inside, he felt a familiar knot tightening. To celebrate Sophie's arrival, they decided to host a get-together with friends and family. Emily was meticulous in her planning. "Did you pick up the wine?" she asked. "Yep. Got the red and white you wanted," John answered, setting the bottles on the counter. "Did you remember the gluten-free crackers for Sarah?" John paused. "Gluten-free?" Emily threw her hands up. "Unbelievable. Do I have to do everything myself?" "Emily, it's just crackers. I'm sure she'll survive," John replied, reaching for a beer from the fridge. She shot him a withering look. "That's not the point." As guests started arriving, the atmosphere lightened. Laughter filled the house, and for a moment, John felt hopeful. "Cheers to baby Sophie," their friend Mike toasted, raising his glass. "Cheers," everyone echoed. John mingled, enjoying the company and the opportunity to unwind. He was on his third beer when Emily sidled up next to him. "Don't you think you've had enough?" she whispered tersely. He glanced at his bottle. "I'm fine. It's a party." She frowned. "You need to be able to help with the baby if she cries." "Emily, relax. I'm just having a good time." She huffed and walked away, leaving John feeling frustrated. Later in the evening, as John recounted a funny work story to a group of friends, Emily interrupted. "Sorry to cut in, but maybe you should switch to water now," she said loudly. The group fell silent. John felt his cheeks flush. "Excuse me. You've had quite a few drinks. We wouldn't want you stumbling around with the baby," she continued. He forced a smile. "I think I can handle myself." "Like you handled forgetting the crackers," she retorted. Awkward chuckles rippled through the crowd. "Emily, let's not do this here," John warned quietly. "Why not? Everyone should know how unreliable you are," she pressed on. John snapped. "Maybe if you weren't so controlling and frigid, I wouldn't need to have a few drinks." Gasps echoed around the room. Emily's face turned beet red. "How dare you?" she spat before storming off. The party fizzled after that. Guests mumbled excuses and left quickly, leaving John alone in the messy living room. The next day was icy. Emily avoided eye contact and spoke only to the baby. Around noon, she grabbed her purse. "I'm going out," she announced. "Where are you going?" John asked. "To see a friend." "Can you handle Sophie, or should I hire a babysitter?" she replied sarcastically. "I've got it," he said, rolling his eyes. She left without another word. Feeling the weight of the argument, John decided to distract himself by tidying up. As he picked up empty glasses, he muttered to himself, "Frigid. Probably shouldn't have said that." Meanwhile, Emily wasn't meeting a friend. Fueled by anger and a desire for revenge, she headed to a downtown bar where she knew she'd find exactly what she was looking for. "Emily, over here," called out Dave, a charming acquaintance she'd met at a work conference. "Hey, stranger," she said, forcing a flirtatious smile. They chatted over drinks, and one thing led to another. Emily found herself feeling a twisted sense of empowerment. "That'll teach him," she thought as she left the hotel room later that afternoon. What she didn't realize was that Dave was a close friend of John's buddy, Mark. A few days later, Mark approached John at the local gym. "Hey man, can we talk?" Mark asked cautiously. "Sure, what's up?" John replied, wiping sweat from his brow. It's about Emily, Mark began, looking uncomfortable. John's stomach dropped. What about her? Look, I wasn't sure whether to tell you, but I think you should know. Dave mentioned he spent some time with Emily recently. John frowned. Dave? From the conference. Yeah, he didn't know she was your wife at first. When he found out, he felt terrible. John's heart pounded. Are you saying? Mark nodded solemnly. I'm sorry, man. John was silent for a moment, his mind racing. Did he say anything else? Mark hesitated. He said she seemed really angry, kept venting about you, saying you were unsupportive and, well, other things. John clenched his jaw. I see. That evening, John confronted Emily after putting Sophie to bed. We need to talk, he said firmly. She crossed her arms. About what? About you and Dave. Her eyes flickered briefly before she scoffed. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Emily. I know you were with him. She rolled her eyes. Fine. Yes, I was. Can you blame me after the way you've been acting? Are you serious? You're justifying cheating because of an argument? John asked incredulously. You humiliated me in front of our friends, called me frigid. And you belittle me constantly. He fired back. You treat me like a child. Maybe if you didn't act like one, she snapped. They glared at each other, the air thick with resentment. This isn't healthy, John finally said, his voice calmer. For us or for Sophie? She looked away. What are you saying? I think we need to consider a separation. Emily was silent for a moment. Maybe that's for the best. They agreed to divorce, each hiring their own attorney. The proceedings were tense, but both were adamant about prioritizing Sophie's well-being. They settled on joint custody, with clear schedules to ensure stability for their daughter. Months later, John was adjusting to his new normal. One Saturday morning, he was at the park with Sophie when he ran into Sarah, Emily's college friend. John, hi, Sarah greeted warmly. Hey, Sarah, how are you? He replied. Good, and look at Sophie, she's getting so big. He smiled. Yeah, she's growing like a weed. They chatted for a while, watching as Sophie played on the swings. I heard about you and Emily, Sarah said gently. John nodded. Yeah, it was rough, but we're making it work for Sophie. Sarah hesitated before speaking. For what it's worth, I always thought you were a great guy. Thanks, that means a lot, he said sincerely. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime. As friends, she added quickly. I'd like that, John replied, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. As they parted ways, John felt a glimmer of hope. Back at home, Emily was struggling. She hadn't anticipated how difficult single life would be. One evening, she called John. Hi, she said when he answered. Hey, everything okay with Sophie? He asked. Yes, she's fine. I just wanted to apologize. John was quiet for a moment. Okay. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about how I handled things. I'm sorry. He sighed. I appreciate that. Maybe we can be better at communicating, for Sophie's sake, she suggested. I'd like that, he agreed. Over time, they established a more amicable relationship, focusing on co-parenting their daughter effectively. Reader comments. Lay_mama. Wow, this story was intense. So glad John stood up for himself. Beach bummed him. Emily seems like a piece of work. John dodged a bullet there. City Girl 22. I appreciate that they both decided to put their child first in the end. Foodie Frank. That party scene was so awkward. Couldn't stop reading. Sunny Saidib. Hoping John and Sarah hit it off. He deserves some happiness. Real talk, Rachel. Communication is key, folks. This could have been avoided with some honest conversations. That life. As a single dad, I relate to John's struggle. Stay strong. Hopeful Helen. At least they figured out how to co-parent. That's so important for the child. Drama Llama. Emily's actions were inexcusable. Glad John found out the truth. Bookworm Bith. This was so well written. Kept me hooked till the end.